This is an interview for the British Chinese Food Culture Project. The venue is London Canary Wharf, and the interviewer's name is Chi-Ho Lee. And if I can just get the interviewee to state her name and spell it, please.
I'm Maria Chong. Sorry.
And can you spell it, please?
Oh, Maria. Maria. Chong is Chong.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'll just ask you some general questions. And first of all, could you tell me when and why did you come to the UK?
I came here last September, but in and out, and I really settled in since early March this year. Yeah, and the purpose is to work for Lee Kum Kee here. I've been with the company for a long time, but I was kind of relocated to this market so that Lee Kum Kee can develop the market more aggressively, selling the sauces to local consumers. Not just for UK, but also for European countries.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell me about your working experiences of the Lee Kum Kee brand in Hong Kong, China, and the UK?
Okay, I joined the company about 20 years ago, and when they celebrate the 100 years. So I'm part of the celebration. Anyway, I started working with a company on Southeast Asian market, which is the ASEAN country, including countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, Brunei, etc. And in between, I was handling different roles. I was playing different roles in the company. Like for a while, I was handling Australia market, New Zealand, South Pacific Islands, and so on. And I play some corporate functions as well in the company.
And how do you feel about dealing with sauces as your job?
Oh, fantastic. Sauces, it's something very important in our daily life in cooking. We have to eat, everybody have to eat, and we need to prepare food at home. Sauces is, I would say, the soul in all dishes. It gives the flavors, the appearance, the color, and the texture of all dishes. So it is very critical in our daily life. So I feel like I'm handling a product that is so important to my daily life. Yeah.
And how was the food when you first arrived in the UK?
I think outside of Hong Kong and China, UK is one of the places that I can have very good Chinese food. Of course, we cannot compare directly with those in Hong Kong and China because it still have a lot of issues like you do not have all the kind of ingredients you can easily get it available in Hong Kong or China. It's the sources of ingredients, that's the problem. However, we do see a lot of good Chinese chefs around in the country, and they come in from Hong Kong and from the mainland, and then they bring along very good Chinese cooking skills and knowledge in Chinese cuisines, and they are here to promote Chinese cuisines to the local consumers here. So I would say I have very good impression of Chinese food and Chinese restaurants food here in the UK. Yeah.
And what is your favourite Chinese seasoning sauce?
Oyster sauce, definitely. Honestly.
And what is your favourite Chinese dish?
There are many. Broccoli beef, sweet and sour pork. These two are my top of mind. But recently, when we have more exposure to different types of Chinese cuisines, whether back in Hong Kong or China or around the world, we started to experience more than just Cantonese cuisines like the Sichuan dishes and Hunan dishes and Shanghai cuisines and Beijing dishes as well. So I got a few from the others.
And what is your least favourite Chinese dish?
Couldn't think of any.
They're all good.
They're all good. Yeah, it depends on whether you have the right seasoning and sauces and the right cooking skills. Yeah.
Next, I'd like to ask you a bit more about Lee Kum Kee's activities around here. And first of all, I'd like to ask about if you could provide me with an overview and the development of Chinese seasoning sauces in the UK or in Europe as well.
The company has been exporting sauces from Hong Kong since a long time ago. I think the first range of product that we bring to the market include oyster sauce. Definitely oyster sauce is one of the earliest. And then soy sauce, we came a bit late. I think it's in the 90s when the company really invests heavily in China for very modern plants in fermenting and producing good quality soy sauce. That's the time when we were really ready. And then since the 90s, we started to bring in soy sauces to the UK market as well. And aside from these two, we have hoisin sauce and ground bean sauce, what you normally call crushed yellow bean sauce in this market. So those are some of the popular sauces that gain an early entry into the country. And aside from this, we have a range of chili sauces like tobanjang, which is called the chili bean sauce, chili garlic sauce, black bean sauce, plum sauce. Wow, just too many to name. And I think up to now we have over 70, around 70 different types of Chinese sauces in the country.
According to the Lee Gum-Gai website, oyster sauce was invented by the founder of Lee Gum-Gai, Mr. Lee Gum-Sang, in 1888. Could you please tell us the story of its inception?
Oh, that's very interesting. It's back in 1888. Very easy to remember. A very lucky year. It's a triple eight. Okay, in the year that the company was founded, and it was an accident actually. The founder, Mr. Lee Gum-Sang, he was running a small restaurant in southern part of China, a place called Nanshui, and there was a day that he was cooking a pot of oyster soup, but then he was out of the kitchen and he was talking to the customers, and then the oyster soup got overcooked, and then it reduced from a soup into a residue, like a thick sauce in a wok, and then he saw it and he tasted the sauce and he found it very delicious, and then he started selling that sauce to his customers of the restaurants. And it was a big hit at that time, and since then he started to produce oyster sauce. Yeah, that's how oyster sauce came about.
Could you tell me the background on how Lee Gum-Gai expanded in the UK or even Western countries? So in other words, the approach to open to the Western markets.
I remember the first time we really set up an office here, instead of just doing export direct from Hong Kong, it was in 1995. Lee Gum-Gai set up the first office in London, and it was a small team, about 3 people in the office. Before that, we only get it through exporters from Hong Kong and some importers and local Chinese who bring in the sauces to sell it in the cash and carries and in the wholesale business and distribute around Europe. And then we started to recruit some marketing people in the office to aggressively develop the market. It's more than just establishing the distribution network so that we can pipeline our products into the countries as before, but we work on more aggressive penetration programs. And then we have the marketing people to work on some supporting activities so that we can also educate the consumers here to use our products. Of course, the development also go back to the migration of Chinese people into this country. They bring in the knowledge of Chinese food and the setting up of a lot of Chinese restaurants around the countries. And then we are the people supplying the ingredients in their cooking. But at that time, I think from the beginning, it was more through the Chinese restaurants, food service trade. But after that, we started to develop the retail market as well, so that our products is not only experienced through the restaurants, through Chinese restaurants, but also go directly to the consumers' kitchens.
When were the convenience sauces developed and what was their market response?
You mean the convenience sauce developed particularly for this market or for Lee Kum Kee as a whole in different parts of the world?
Well, you can apply it more widely to Western or market in general if you want.
Okay. I remember for the company, the first development of the convenience sauce range is in the 70s. Okay. It was a range of convenience product. We call it internally convenience product because it's a recipe-based sauces range that we want to make cooking easier and make life easier for all the homemakers. I'll give you a few examples, like the chicken marinade here is one of the top selling convenience product we have. And the char siu sauce is another. Black bean garlic is another. Why do I call it a recipe-based sauce? Is because, in the old days, in preparing a Chinese dish, take for example soy chicken, we have to use soy sauce, sugar, and maybe ginger. Those are the basic ingredients to prepare soy chicken. However, the kind of proportion you put in each time is very hard to control. So the convenience product is portion controlled, and then the flavor is adjusted to the right degree and dimension that for the consumers, he just need to open the bottle and then pour the whole bottle of chicken marinade to make a soy chicken. He doesn't have to bother about what's the proportion of light soy I have to put in and the dark soy I have to put in and the sugar and so on and so forth. And another example is very representative example is the black bean garlic sauce. Black bean garlic, in the old days, we all do steamed spare ribs in black bean and garlic, right, at home for Chinese. And then we have to wash the black beans and then make sure it's clean, and then we have to crush it, and then separately we have to wash the garlic and then mince it, and then we have to blend in the two and add soy sauce and a little bit of oil and sugar, and then it's the same old problem of mixing the right proportion and a lot of work. So this convenient black bean garlic sauce will have all the ingredients in the right proportion, right taste. So the consumer just need to scoop it out and 2 teaspoons into a certain amount of spare ribs, chopped up, marinade, and put into the steamer and do it. So it's very quick and easy. And char siu also, in the past, no one at home can do their own char siu, right? We have to go out and buy from the barbecue shop. And after we have this char siu sauce developed for the consumers, they can just scoop 2 tablespoons and marinate the pork fillets and then put it in the oven. And in 15 or 20 minutes, it's done. And then they just slice it and serve. So these are the convenience product the company developed in the 70s. It's a brilliant product. Yeah, being Chinese, I know how to cook, but then I still use them. Life is busy, it's difficult, so we need convenience product.
Are there any interesting stories when introducing Chinese seasoning sauces to the Westerners?
Oh, the most impressive one is I heard some local consumers, I think British or English people, they use the whole jar of black bean, pour into one spare dish. Wow, so salty and a little bit bitterness. Because this is not the way to use. In the past, they think, oh, the Chinese sauce that come in jar, they call it convenience product, so it has to be used the whole jar. So this is before the authentic ingredient sauce came into the market, people thought the locally made Chinese sauce, which they use the whole bottle, is the right thing. They follow the right direction of usage. But actually, our ingredient sauce, you just use a little bit. So it's a matter of education. The message was not communicated across at that time. It didn't show on the label, and in the old days there were not that many recipe pamphlets we developed for the market, so it's all our fault. And then it was quite interesting that a consumer wrote to one of the colleagues that saying that, oh, I use the whole jar, but how come the taste doesn't replicate those in the restaurant? Because it's the wrong way of the usage he used the product. So it's quite interesting. But I think this thing doesn't happen anymore in the market. They know the products now. They are quite well versed in cooking Chinese.
What are the best-selling products among the Western customers in the UK, and why do you think this is?
I would say in general, people here, the mainstream customers, the British people, they know more about soy sauce and hoisin sauce. And probably some of them who really like Chinese food, they also know oyster sauce and black bean sauce and so on. And I would say soy sauce and hoisin may still be the most popular, but I don't think it's going to be the same in future when the markets get more mature and more efforts being put in educating the British consumers here. Because there are a lot more ingredient sauces in the range that we feel that they would love, but they were just not given a chance to experience it. And I would say oyster sauce is the up and coming one. It will be getting very popular in this country. Once people get to know the product, how convenient and how tasty it can turn the Chinese dishes into it, and how easy it is to prepare food with that. And a lot more other sauce in our range, like the chili sauce range. I noticed that these days, a lot of British people, they love spicy food. But probably we need to educate them on different types of chili sauces. You know, China is so big. Different provinces, they have their own signature chili sauces. We have a range that capture the popular ones, but we haven't got a chance to communicate with them, to communicate to them how they should be using each. You know, chili sauce, some will be for dipping, some will be for cooking, some will you use it like a dressing or to season up your dishes. So it involves a lot of education, but they are not difficult at all. It's only a matter of time and education. And there are some fruity and sweet type of sauces that we carry in the range, like the plum sauce, the sweet and sour sauce, the lemon chicken sauce. Those are, I would believe, is the right taste profile for British consumers here. They will love it, but they haven't got a chance to be exposed to them. Yeah, it's coming along. Yeah.
What would you say are the challenges of selling Chinese products, or sauces in your case, to a non-Chinese market, and how do you go about tackling this?
I think education is one of the challenge, because you know, sauces, because it involves in cooking, and cooking is kind of cooking and food is more culture related. So I would say British consumers, they know a lot about cooking, seasoning, sauces of their own culture. But for Chinese sauces like ours, they will love it, but then at the beginning they need to be educated. So the barrier is the knowledge on the usage. But it's not a big barrier that we cannot break. It's easier to break. It's given the time. Yeah.
Is there any product mainly developed for and consumed by Western customers?
There is a range of product in our portfolio that I would say it's a good range that we should be aiming for them. It's developed not just for the mainstream Western consumers. It's also developed for those who are busy or younger Chinese consumers who is not so well versed in Chinese cooking. It's a range of pouch sauces. It's portion controlled sauces all in one in a sachet format that we feel that the consumers will find it easier to get started with, especially if you are not having a lot of knowledge in Chinese cooking. However, I would say even all those authentic ingredient sauces, once we add in the element of educating and demonstrating to them how to use it, local consumers can use exactly the same range as Chinese consumers. So I don't think there need to be any particular sauces that we have to tailor-made to their flavor. Because I noticed that recently the British consumers, they really look for authentic taste. They don't need to twist an authentic ingredient sauce into totally different flavor profile to fit in their cooking. I think one of the major challenges that we're facing in developing the mainstream market, the Western consumers market here, is on their knowledge, the limited knowledge in Chinese cooking at home. they may have a lot of experience of Chinese food in Chinese restaurants, but talking about doing it themselves in their own kitchen, it calls for a lot of education from our end. And the kind of education we are looking at and what we have been doing, including some simple and easy to do Chinese recipes in form of pamphlets that we distribute through the Chinese outlets to reach out to them. And once in a while, we also conduct cooking demos in the trade, in the retail outlets that they will visit very often. And the other one is thinking about the kind of education we want to bring to them. Aside from teaching them how to use our sauces in Chinese cooking, we also educate them to use the sauce in their daily cooking. Some of the dishes that probably is in their main diet already, which in fact they can bring in new flavor dimension using Chinese sauces so that they won't waste the big jars that they brought home. And another challenge that I would say is the awareness and knowledge of the brand. Because, all the Hong Kong people, they know Lee Kum Kee. And a lot of mainland Chinese now also know the brand Lee Kum Kee. It's a very famous brand in Hong Kong and China. However, when it comes to UK, as we did not invest a lot in advertising here, so a lot of consumers, probably it's not too familiar with the brand. So in order to tell them what is the right brand for them to choose for the right products, that is authentic, quality Chinese sauce brand, we have to find different means and different types of media to reach out to them. But at the same time, it could not be too costly. It takes time, okay? But then since with the popularity of internet and also with the setting up of our websites and the web page, we are trying to make use of the web-based form of media to reach out to the consumers. And but content-wise, we want to tailor-made and so that it can be more user-friendly to the local consumers in the UK. So we are working hard on that. So a few months from now, we should get very close and do our website launch to reach out to the consumer, to tell them why they should be buying the right sauce brand, and also educate through the website on the different usages of the sauces. And also, one point very important is to tell them that Chinese cooking is not as difficult as they thought. So these are the work that we are working on. Over the process, I still recall some interesting stories that we have experienced. Like I remember there was a consumers in the shows who told us he's already using our sauces in their own local dishes. Like there's a dish called cottage pie. They use our oyster sauce in the gravy, and he said it's really good. So since then, he's been a fan of the Lee Kum Kee oyster sauce. But it has to be the premium brand, of course, the best that the Chinese are using. And there was another consumer who told us he used the plum sauce over a scoop of vanilla ice cream because of the fruity flavor of the plum sauce. He said it really adds extra zest to the ice cream that he has been having. And I remember there is an industrial food manufacturer doing ice cream who bought our 55-gallon sesame oil to do the ice cream. I don't know how he did it, but then it's a secret recipe of the manufacturer though. But he did buy drums of sesame oil to do the ice cream. So it was kind of interesting. And it's also inspires us in our consumer education work, how to bring the usages of Chinese sauces into daily food preparation for the local consumers. And there's another example. It's there are consumers using our plum sauce in the Sunday rolls. In the roast gammon, they use the plum sauce as a glaze to do the roast gammon. So this is the eye-opener for me, being a Chinese, selling Chinese sauces. And now I noticed that our direction is right. Our sauces, aside from using in Chinese cooking, educating consumers in that direction, we also have alternatives. Is teaching them how to use it in British food. Yeah, this is really interesting. And another is the tomato garlic prawns. I don't mean the tomato garlic prawns dish itself, but we have a MOS sachet pouch. It's called sauce for tomato garlic prawns, which is we sell here. And then actually, it's aside from being a gravy for that particular tomato garlic prawns dish, it's also a dip for tortilla chips here. We tried it, never fails. Everybody loves it.
What would you say are the main reasons why interest in Chinese cooking has increased?
I think people are more mobile these days. They travel a lot, whether for business or for holiday, for leisure. So they have been exposed to a lot of Asian culture, Asian food, Asian cuisines. And so with the broader view on cuisine types that they can have access to and they have experience, they would broaden their taste and preference. They know they have more choices. And why Chinese? I would say Chinese food is considered one of the world cuisines that have really have a lot of varieties. And you know, Chinese cuisines have thousands of years of histories in it, and there are so many different types and varieties from different provinces. And besides, I would say Chinese food is considered one of the healthiest non-mainstream cuisines here, because you know we eat a lot of vegetables, we eat fish, we eat meats, and normally in a Chinese diet we have a mix of everything. So it's a very balanced diet, and the way of cooking is also very healthy, and it can be very light as well, and there are so many choices. So it's I think it's these three elements that make it popular. And people, some of them may like spicy food. They can have a spicy type of Chinese dishes, and some like fresh ingredients. So they just do some stir fry with the oyster sauce or with the soy sauce. And then if they like meat, they can use oyster sauce or soy sauce to do the marinade to make it more tasty. So the varieties and the different types of applications that is applicable in cooking make Chinese dishes popular, Chinese cuisines popular. And another very important reason is that you know, Chinese restaurants has been here in the country for a long time. I do believe the Chinese restaurants really have promoted Chinese cuisines to British people in this country. They have made very good efforts in letting local consumers have the experience of Chinese food, and Chinese takeaways too, of course.
What changes have been observed with the tastes and demands of the Western market, and why do you think this is so? I have the observation that for the Western market here, the British consumers, they are moving into the direction of the need for more ingredient-based sauces and authentic sauces. Maybe in the past they have been exposed to some convenience, one-shot sauces in a jar, which is, I would say, not the kind of taste that normally the Chinese will go for. But now, because of their exposure to Chinese cuisines from traveling or from more experience from the restaurants and so on, they know that they should be going for the ingredient-based and authentic sauces. So this is one change I have observed recently. And for the exposure they have gained, they are also looking for varieties in the Chinese cuisine type. Maybe in the past they have experienced a lot of Cantonese dishes. Now they would look for more regional or provincial Chinese cuisine type as well. And aside from that, they are kind of using sauces, maybe Chinese or Asian sauces, into more fusion applications, so that they can blend the taste in their daily cooking. So this is the trend that we observe from not just the consumers, but also some non-Chinese restaurants, like maybe some fusion restaurants or Western restaurants. So you can see a lot more on the menus that carry Asian flavors and Chinese flavors in particular. And
I would say the people here now also look for more spicy flavors and taste profile. So we can see the chili sauces demand is on the rise as well, aside from the authentic ingredient-based range of sauces.
What do you think of the Western manufacturers producing Chinese seasoning sauces?
I think they're very progressive and forward-looking by looking at the range that they keep on introducing into the market and keep on reviving in the range. They really go for the trend. They really observe what the consumers like and what sort of food and flavor trend direction they're moving into. But then, having said that, as a Chinese, I feel that the taste profile is not there. There's still a big gap. This is the gap we can bridge because we know what is authentic flavor and we know what's the best representative flavor profile of dishes. That's what we really call authentic Chinese dishes. But it's only a little bit a twist on the basic taste, like the saltiness or the sweetness or the spiciness of the sauce that fit in with local preference to tailor-made for the local taste buds. And pick the right sauce for the consumers here.
At the moment, more British supermarkets are introducing world food aisles to their stores. How do you feel about this as a future development, as many Chinese products are still limited to specialist Oriental retailers?
I think stores like those Chinese cash and carry here in Britain, they have played a very important role in promoting Chinese cuisines and Chinese ethnic food to British people. Their role will continue into the future. They will still remain very important. But having seen the British supermarkets expanding into the world food aisles, I would see it as a very positive sign for the company and for Chinese cuisines and Chinese cooking into the future. It's a very positive sign because for whatever good products you have, if you cannot make it available to the consumers, it will be a waste, I would say. It's these kind of valuable ingredients, you really want to have a wider and deeper network to reach out to the British consumers. So this is a good sign for us, and I'm sure with their development of the world food aisles within the stores, Chinese food can be further promoted so that a lot more British consumers can experience these kind of products and Chinese cooking as well, to broaden their portfolio in their food and food preparation. They have more choices.
What is your outlook in the future development and growth of Lei Gumge's products, and how will you tackle this?
I would say the outlook is very positive for us, for simple reason that this is not a mature market yet. I can see a lot of potential in the market, and there are so many gaps in the market that we can fill, given the quality product and authentic taste of the sauces that is available in our portfolio. Worldwide we have 200 different Chinese sauces, and here in the market we have only about 60 to 70, and yet only a few is in the supermarkets at this moment. So there are so many more things that we can do here, aside from introducing more appropriate product into the Western portfolio, targeting at the mainstream consumers. There are a lot of education work we can do, and also in one of the company mission, it is to promote the high quality Chinese cuisines and the Chinese food culture to the Western world. So I think Lei Gum has a big role to play in this area, and there's so much that we still need to catch up and so much we can do in the market. And because of the trend and the well acceptance of Chinese food here, we are just going like in parallel in the right direction together. So you have the trend here and we have the right products here, and then when the programs come along, the 2 points simply meet in the near future. So the outlook is very positive. And one of the things that is critical, I think, down the road is that we have to make sure the consumers do understand that Chinese cooking is not that difficult. So this is the priority, aside from doing education. We have to change the perception of Chinese cooking to British consumers to make sure they understand that Chinese cooking is easy and is healthy, and it can be blended into their daily life. So this is the direction to move into. Yeah.
How do you draw inspiration when developing new products?
Oh, from different sources, really, very wide range of sources. Like when we travel, when we eat outside, we do read a lot of restaurants menu, but that doesn't just limit it to Chinese restaurants menu, because restaurants people are very creative. The chefs are very creative, and even non-sauce products, the kind of flavor trends you can read a lot from biscuits, you can read a lot from drinks, you can read a lot from convenience food. So these are the source of inspiration you can get from. Of course, once in a while we also do research in the market to understand the consumers' needs and what is the flavor trend. And these days, with the convenience of the web and the internet, we also subscribe to a lot of flavor trend reports from the internet, and that gives us a lot of inspiration as well. And there is another source of inspiration that we get directly from consumers by observing what is their food habits change and the way they prepare food, because it can give you a lot of ideas of what types of sauces to fit in the kind of food occasions consumers have. So it doesn't have to come from purely the flavor trend or what is available in the menu. It's coming in from the daily lives and the lifestyle of consumers themselves. So we do something that we feel that there is certain kind of implicit needs unfulfilled from the consumers. So this is the different types of inspirations, or source of inspiration we get from the markets. And also talking to the chefs is very useful. As I said, chefs are very creative people, especially those passionate chefs. They would, in the conversation, they would give a lot of inspirations as well. So sometimes it's not just to ask them what sauces you think we should be doing, not that, but what's the trend of the food, the flavor change, the taste bud change. A lot of things a lot of inspirations we can get from these professionals. Yeah.
What have you found to be the conceptions and misconceptions of Chinese cooking among the Western market?
I think the top of mind misconception that I got after settling down in London is that people think Chinese cooking is difficult, but actually it's not. It's just like you're telling me, Maria, use the tartar sauce. What's the tartar sauce? I don't know. I know nothing about that. I think it's the same for them. What is oyster sauce? Probably they don't know what is oyster sauce. But once you show them, you demonstrate the miracles it works on food and how easy it is to use, then they will change the perception of not just a sauce, but also Chinese cooking as a whole. There are some basic skills they need to master, but they are not complicated things. They can grasp the techniques very conveniently. I would say, to me, as a Chinese, I find cooking Chinese is so simple and easy when you get the right tools, and it doesn't have to be the complicated tools. I remember there was a right tools, not just tools itself, but also ingredients, like the sauce. Because to us, the sauce is like a soul in a dish. It gives it the flavor, the texture, the color, appearance. So you have to know the nature, and then you know just a few tricks in doing a stir fry or braising or steaming or whatever. Then you can grasp the framework in doing Chinese cooking. Then you do it every day. It's so easy. And I think in the old days, one of the misconceptions about Chinese food in the old days is that it's probably some people see it as unhealthy. However, I think it's only the traditional cooking methods in the restaurants using a lot of oil in the dishes. So you see some of the dishes, they have a lot of oil, and then some of the dishes they always using deep fried method, and that was in the old days, but not anymore. I think these days Chinese restaurants are very cautious of what consumers needs, and consumers look for more healthy alternative. So they would love to see less oil in the dishes, and probably they are concerned about using MSG in cooking. But actually, it doesn't have to be that. Like in Chinese cooking at home, you can use much less oil. You know, the quick stir fry doesn't call for that much cooking oil in there. It's only about 1 tablespoon. You can do a stir fry dish already, and then Chinese people seldom use MSG at home to do cooking anymore. Not like in many years ago in the old days, and then we seldom do deep fry at home. So actually, there are so many different types of cooking method in Chinese cooking, in particular home cooking, that probably have not been introduced to British consumers. So once they are into it, they know that Chinese cooking can be very healthy. And besides, Chinese look for balanced diets. So normally in a say for example in a meal for dinner, we have a dish for vegetables, a dish for fish, and then a dish for meat. So it's quite balanced. So it's a matter of what's the skills and what's the kind of cooking methods you have available to you to choose from to make the diet more healthy.
Thank you very much for your involvement in the British Chinese Food Culture Project.
You're most welcome.